Hello, 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 and welcome to the fourth episode of Mixed Media Reviews Season 4. My name is Kelsey, and today I'll be talking about a book. This week's book is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. Just a quick little thing before we start today's episode. I know that I am posting late again this week. Typically, I like to write and record and edit and post and schedule and everything else on Friday afternoons, but lately my Fridays have just been super busy. I've been working a little bit more. Normally I have like half days on Fridays, but I've been working longer than half days, and then I've had like car appointments and lunches and all kinds of other things like scheduled. So I haven't really been able to, and then my Saturdays have been busy, and it's just been this whole ball of stuff, I guess. Trying to get back on track. But hopefully I can get back to the regular schedule soon. But if not, I promise I'll still at least pump out like the episode. Pump out? I don't know what I said. I'll try to pump out the episodes every weekend anyway, and it just may not be exactly Saturday at 3 p.m. But I will try my best, and hopefully life calms down soon. Anyway, I, like a lot of the books I've been reading, saw this book, The Cemetery Boys, all over the internet for quite a while, including my friend Amy, who also posts about books she reads. She had posted that she had read it, and she mentioned that it was really good, so I figured it must be good, and decided that I'd finally read it when I had a gap between some of my other holds. Goodreads has the following summary. When his traditional Latinx family has problems accepting his gender, Yadriel becomes determined to prove himself a real brujo. With the help of his cousin and best friend Maritza, he performs the ritual himself, then sets out to find the ghost of his murdered cousin and set it free. However, the ghost he summons is actually Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy, and Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He's determined to find out what happened and tie up some loose ends before he leaves. Left with no choice, Yadriel agrees to help Julian so that they can both get what they want. But the longer Yadriel spends with Julian, the less he wants him to leave. So just a few things before we dive in. The first is I am sorry if I pronounce things terribly. I listened to the audiobook of this story, so I'm trying to recreate what I heard. It was a while ago, so if I don't get it right, that could be part of it, and it could just be because I'm bad at life. So I apologize in advance if it offends your ears. The second thing is that this episode isn't going to be too spoiler heavy. I'll mention a few things that are tied to the items that are already mentioned in the summary, but I'm not going to be revealing any big like mysteries or big endings. But I will mention a few things that I think could perhaps be maybe spoiler-ish if you don't know where the story's going. But I promise, again, like the big reveals I will not say anything about. Also, because we're talking about some things that come up in this book, I suppose I should probably say some content warnings or content triggers. Is, of course, lots of things that have to do with people in the trans community and coming out and dead naming and things like that. So if you are sensitive to those things, just be warned that I will mention a couple issues that he has in his life, and that may be a little sensitive to some people. The last thing I want to discuss or touch on, I suppose, is that I know I'll be using the term Latinx, and I know that it can be polarizing within the Spanish-speaking community. I know some like the term and others don't. I have spoken to some people in the past who said that they do not like the term. However, I've never really spoken to anyone within the Spanish-speaking community who's actually questioning their gender or has struggled in the past with it. Only really those who currently feel comfortable in the gender they were born with. And perhaps that's really where the divide lives, is those that, haven't had the struggle don't really see the need for it, where those who have had it feel the need to have it. Not an expert on the issue, obviously, and I am not a part of either community, so I genuinely don't have a say on it. I will, however, use the term Latinx and others like Brujex if needed throughout the episode, since the writer used them themselves, and I am choosing to respect the writer and how they wrote the terms themselves. Okay, let's dive into this wonderful book. I absolutely loved it. I have really enjoyed reading fantasy books that tie into other cultures lately, because I'm loving that they're becoming more common. Because they're becoming more common, I keep finding them and reading them and discovering that I really, really like these kinds of different cultures tied up in a fantasy and like folklore type of book and story. And I've just really loved that there's like way more that you can kind of stumble upon, and it opens up like a whole other world of fantasy, and I'm loving it. Cemetery Boys brought in a lot of different cultures as well, Mexican, Cuban, Colombian, Haitian, and I think there's even more. And so while some of the terms I did find familiar, like Dia de Muertos, others I had never heard about, like the Brujex. That was something that I had not really discovered or heard about before, so I really liked learning about what it was like to be a brujo and a bruja. And yeah, it was really interesting to learn all about that, and I really enjoyed learning about Yadriel and how he fit into this world that he lived in. I have seen some comments online about there being like a ton of exposition, and maybe because it was the audiobook, I didn't feel like there was a lot or too much or too heavy. It could have been that the narrator did just this fantastic job of being able to weave in the details of his life, both as a member of his community and as a trans teen, in a way that didn't feel stilted. And again, perhaps that's credit due more to the narrator. I think his name is Avi Roque. Sorry. So maybe it has more with the narrator than the actual words on the page. But either way, I really enjoyed it, and I didn't really feel like the exposition was too heavy. I think the moment Julian was described as the bad boy in the summary, we knew he'd be the love interest. And what an adorable love interest he was. I absolutely loved the way that Yadriel and Julian were able to just exist together, if that makes sense. The story could be hard to read or listen to at times because Thomas wrote about a family who both accepted and didn't accept their son, but Julian accepted Yadriel just as he was, never once questioning or even thinking to question Yadriel's identity, and the moments between them were just so incredibly beautiful. Like I said, this book tells the story of a young boy who's trying to live his truth within a community who has both accepted and not accepted him. His cousin Maritza, who I loved as well, completely accepts Yadriel with open arms, fully embracing him, as well as his Tio, who seems to understand Yadriel on a level that no one else, even Maritza, really can. While his father and grandmother accept him at kind of an arm's length. They love him, but they don't truly and really and wholly embrace his identity. They see him as someone who he is not still, not allowing him to become a brujo or fully engulfed as a man, as a young boy within their community. There are even times where his father dead names him, and I really think that Thomas's choice to not actually put the name in the book was really well done. It's such like a nice way to respect Yadriel as a character while showing that not everyone else does show him that same respect. And yes, his father felt bad about dead naming him, and while yes, people may make a mistake and accidentally say the wrong thing and slip up, as we are all human beings and make mistakes. And it was such a good setting, I think, for a coming-of-age type of story where he's not only fighting the transphobia within his community, but also dealing with this heavy grief of losing his mother, somebody who genuinely supported him as he is. All that while dealing with, falling in love and trying to, solve multiple mysteries happening at once, while also trying to prove himself. It was just a really good book, and I really thought Thomas did a great job of laying it out for us, of making us, fall in love with Yadriel himself. And I really liked this book, in case you didn't notice. If I had read this book instead of listening to it, I may have some criticisms about the writing. But honestly, as a debut novel, I think Thomas did a wonderful job. The book was thought-provoking, it was funny, it was sad, it was a learning experience in both culture and identity. I think it hit a lot of good points. And again, listening to it, I thought the narrator did a great job. And so I don't really have any critiques. I'm sure if I really studied it, I could probably come up with something, as nothing is ever perfect. But I thought the book was really, really well done, and I don't have any critiques. No notes, no nothing. Only a lingering feeling of wanting to give Yadriel a hug and let him know that it's okay to be himself. I highly recommend this book. Obviously, it had good fantasy. It had a little dose of romance. I mean, what else could you really want in a book? It's an urban fantasy, a folklore fantasy, a queer fantasy. It's just got a lot of great stuff happening. And there you have it. Those are my thoughts on Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. Thank you so much for joining me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Mixed Media Reviews Podcast. Please leave me a comment to let me know if you agreed or if you have any questions. You can also find me where you find your podcasts, probably. Though using Spotify would be very helpful. Please join me next week where I'm going to be reviewing a TV show, Gilmore Girls, a show that I finally watched, and boy, do I have a lot of notes. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye!